President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
As Minister said, I'll be recognized for such time as I shall consume as the final speaker before the nomination.
Without objection.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam President. I would say, Madam President, we're going to vote in just a few minutes to confirm Andrew Wheeler to be Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. There's no one better to serve in this role, and I would know. Andrew worked for me for 14 years in both my personal office and as well as the capacity of chairman of the environment. When I was the chairman of the Environmental Protection Agency, he was the one who was our chairman in the committee. Now, back when President Trump nominated Andrew as deputy administrator, I said there's no one more qualified, and there's no one more qualified anywhere in America to handle this job than Andrew Wheeler. You know, he's been the acting administrator for the last 7 months. Let's keep in mind, he was the most qualified person 7 months ago, and now he's had 7 months on the job. And he's done a really great job. So he's been the acting director. He's now had the, and it didn't really start when he came with the environmental, with any of the governmental agencies, because he's always been concerned about nature and the environment. The guy was an Eagle Scout. In fact, I remember the discussions of people who were with him when he was actually climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. It was with a group of people who were interested in nature and the environment. This came early on with him. So he's got the ability to lead the agencies, and I've always enjoyed following his career. After earning a law degree at Washington University in St. Louis, he joined the EPA as a special assistant in the agency's Pollution Prevention and Toxics Office in 1991. 1991, Madam President, we're talking about 30 years ago. This guy's been there for a long time. And he has grown up, for all practical purposes, in that particular discipline. He was an EPA employee for 4 years, transitioning to the George H.W. Bush administration, then the Clinton administration after that, where he earned 3 bronze medals for commendable service along the way. By the way, I doubt if there are too many people in this chamber who know what that is, so I'm going to read it to you. A bronze medal is given for, and I'm quoting now, significant service or achievements in support of the agency's mission or for demonstration of outstanding accomplishments in supervision and leadership. That's Andrew Wheeler. 3 of those that he did. Now, I know you've heard a lot of people opposing him, and, you know, regretfully, there are a lot of people who are opposed simply for the reason that this is a nominee of the president. You know, we went through this thing with Kavanaugh, and we heard all these things, and then people now look back, many of them regret that they said the things that they said. It's awful hard in the way of Andrew to be critical of him because he's such a nice guy. You know, he left the agency, he brought the sense of service and leadership with him to the United States Senate, where I had a front row seat because he worked for me for 14 years. And I did just really tremendous work. And there was never any complaints about him. He knew what he was doing. Again, with a background, 31-year background on this, there's nothing that he doesn't know about the mission. Andrew started in my personal office as the chief counsel, transitioned to staff director for the United States subcommittee. I was a subcommittee chairman at that time on the subcommittee called the Clean Air, Climate Change, Wetlands, and Nuclear Safety. And he was the one who did all the work, and I took the credit. But it worked. In 2003, when I became the chairman of the committee, and this is the Environment and Public Works Committee, Andy became our chief counsel, and over the next 6 years, he would eventually become staff director and work closely together on highway bills, energy bills, diesel emissions reduction act, clear skies. I can remember when this was taking place because someone who was a very close friend of mine is no longer here, Barbara Boxer from California. We worked together on these things, and it was really kind of funny. Philosophically, we're opposed to each other as much as 2 people could be, but we accomplished everything. We accomplished the things that other people were not able to accomplish. So it's only natural that the president to nominate Andrew to be deputy director at that time, the EPA. That was last April, and he was confirmed in a bipartisan vote. But I always remember he gave a speech over at the EPA. It was kind of a welcome speech at that time. That was the day that he was confirmed as a deputy director of the EPA. And they had, I think it must have had every single employee was in there really kind of paying homage to him. It's a big deal. Here's a guy that started 30 years ago at the bottom, just a normal person in a bureaucracy, and all of a sudden he climbs up. Not all of a sudden, it took him a long 30 years to do it. Climbs up to reach so that he was really a model. He was a model in those 200 or 300 people that I watched. Now, Andrew didn't even know I was there when he was making his initial speech. But I watched the looks on the faces. And the model that he was for them is there's room at the top. Here's a guy that climbed all the way up and he reached the top. He knows what it takes to ensure that our environment is cared for within the laws passed by Congress. He will ensure that all stakeholders are heard, and he will provide certainty and stability for the regulated community. That's a switch. You know, one of the reasons I ran in the first place many years ago for Congress was the fact that I was a builder and developer, and I was over-regulated, and I know what it's like firsthand. Well, he'll be a good steward of the environment without punishing our states, without punishing our farmers, without punishing our job creators, just for the sake of it. Those days are behind us. Andrew's worked on these issues for his entire 28-year career, and I'm honored that he chose to spend half of his 14 years working for me. So I've directly benefited from his service. The United States Senate has benefited from his leadership, and now America will benefit as well. So let's vote Andrew in and put him to work. Madam President.